bumps, the players bump, the fans all go insane. Summer roars, Johnny scores, the good old hockey.
And welcome to the new edition of the Bruins Beat here on CLNS Media. My name is Jimmy Murphy. I'm joined by one of the biggest Bruins fans there is out there. You've heard him plenty of times on this network, and his name is Joe Gill. Joe, how are we doing, my friend?
Doing good, Jim. How are you? Looking forward to this new endeavor.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be one of the new hosts of the Bruins Beat, and even more so to join the family that is CLNS. And I want to thank our men, Sean and Nick, and for getting us on board here. And I think we're going to form an interesting, comical, musical, and of course, hockey knowledgeable.
Diabolical, yeah.
Diabolical. Insane. Yep. We could go on with a lot of interesting superlatives here, but Joe, let me, for those that are maybe listening now because they followed me in the past and they're new to this, to this network and to this this podcast that is now in its 80th edition. Let me get a little background on you. Why don't you give us a little synopsis of Sure. Where your Bruins passion came from and how you got involved with CLNS. And I know this will be refreshing some of the current listeners, but you're getting some new ones now, so let them know what you're about.
Sure thing. Okay, well, we'll just start off with, the Bruins fandom that I have in my blood, in my DNA, if you will. I've been a fan, so I'm 44. I've been a fan probably since... You can probably remind me when Pete Peters played, right, for the Bruins. I think that was early 80s.
82, 83, right on those years.
Yeah, I remember as a little kid.
That's right when I got in there too, buddy.
What's that?
That's right when I started watching a team, when I started going to the games at the Old Garden with my grandfather. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, that kind of reminded, because I remember one of the few things in my childhood that I kind of remember is that I drew a picture of Pete Peters as a brick wall, right, at 10 years old. So it was him. I met Rick Middleton at the ground round in North Reading, so that was another big moment for me. And then also
Nifty's a character, isn't he?
Nifty, he's great. Yeah, I mean, meeting a Bruins player and going the ground round with the popcorn on the floor, you can't beat that. And then I grew up in Wilmington, so we all know what was in Wilmington, Restutia. So as a teenager, in the heyday in the late 80s, early 90s, when they had those 2 cup runs against Edmonton. My friends and I would always hang out at Restutia waiting for the guys to come out and get autographs and all that stuff. And, I met Neely and Oates and Bork and, some guys I probably, Andy Moog, who was my favorite player in the world, who kind of broke my heart because he was a complete jerk when I met him. So, but just like, it's been the fandom I've had. And then, of course, as I got older, I probably watched pretty much every single game if I could. Until the last couple of years, Jim, honest to God, before this turnaround made the playoffs this year, the last 2 or 3 years were with Chiarelli, I was kind of losing my mind. After the Cup win, I mean, it was great, probably one of the best moments of my sports life and probably life after my marriage and my son. It's probably number 3, and sometimes those could shift. I'm kidding. Crying like a baby when they won. I could say that. I feel okay with my manhood to say that.
That's fine. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then, it was just great moment. I just thought they were going to beat the next LA Kings or Chicago Blackhawks and have a little mini dynasty going. We know 13 they were close. But just the way Chiarelli kind of backed themselves in a major corner with the salary cap and the scout, and the draft picks and all that stuff, that's kind of when, stuff was going south and I was questioning the leadership of the team and everything. And it was like into the point where I think right before when Claude got fired and a little bit prior to, they were just hard to watch. They were really testing my fandom, man, at that point. But then when they got rid of Claude, because I was calling for Claude's head for a couple of years.
You know what? You and me are going to have some good arguments. I like this.
I know.
I've got some inside info that I'm going to bring you on this show that may change that point of view you're talking of.
I know you're a Claude guy.
Claude and Peter. No, it's not about being a Claude guy. It's about just facts and the truth, and that's something we'll definitely.
Oh, that'd be great. I mean, I love to be enlightened.
From the rumors that circulated around this town and the agenda that was set down from the Jacobs clan, who I think we mutually.
I know. Propaganda machine.
Fucking spies. I think we can both say that we may argue, but we're going to be in the same boat there. That I don't think I find it hard for anyone to defend Jeremy Jacobs. I just no matter what.
No, I mean you probably. I mean, I heard a lot of people like, well, they're spending money now. This isn't the '80s, and and so forth. When they were 1 or 2 players away from winning those cups against Edmonton, they're different. They're spending the money and all that stuff. Well, I mean, they weren't spending it wisely. And at the end of the day, what's that?
But that's great. They're spending money. They're spending just the same as more than half the league because there's a cap that was created by Jacobs himself. I mean, he made the league the way he likes to run his team.
He created his own monster. Yeah.
So I don't think he should be credited. But you know what? We don't have enough time because we're doing a maiden voyage. But all right, I like your background there. We obviously come from. We're obviously in the same age group. We obviously come from the same era. I grew up myself in Boston, and whether people believe it or not from my tweets, because I'm always bashing the Bruins. Because I just think there's been plenty to bash lately, as you pointed out there. I think that, I hope they can remember when they listen to us that, like you, I was a diehard fan too. I probably went to every home game. I probably went to, I'd say, 83% of the home games at Boston Garden from 1983 to 1995. When the thing shut down, and when my sister and I were like, I guess 2 out of the last 10 to leave the building, we found out. And the next day, we were on the front page of the Boston Herald, the Boston Globe, saying 2 fans can't leave. Yep. So, I mean, of course. I mean, people forget, like, us hockey media, writers, radios, whatever you want to call me. We end up in this job because, A, we sucked as players, and we couldn't make us play. And B, most of us are kind of the Cliff Clavins of the sport we cover, right? It's a passion. So, of course, I was a fan before. But as I tried to do in my later years of being a fan as opposed to just a fan and media, I want to tell it like I see it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I hope to bring to this show. People may not agree with it. It may not be the popular view. It may not be what you've heard or what others have heard. But I'm going to tell you what I know, and I'm gonna put it out there and tell you like I see it. And I hope that the listeners will enjoy that. I hope you can enjoy that too, Joe. And I think already I know from our experiences in person and on the air, I think that we respect each other's opinions, whether they differ or not.
Well, I mean, I know you and I talked about at my Blogapalooza event about, when Tuukka was getting crucified for various reasons, and I know you have some information about that. And I think, the case in point, I think he gets a bad rap in this town because I do think he's still a top 5 goalie, and the Bruins would not even been in probably position to make the playoffs by a few points those 2 years they missed it, and to make it this year if it wasn't for him. So, people are just so short-sighted, they got the Tim Thomas militia, you know what I mean? The Tim Thomas footy-wearing pajama crew out there. Like, that dude's never coming back. I had a big argument with people. Like, he had one historic year, and if you look at the rest of his career, he was average.
I'd say he had more 3 historic years. I mean, remember, he did win a Vezina in 2009, too.
Okay.
Right? But, I mean, I know what you're saying. He wasn't exactly...
wasn't Grant Fuhrer, Patrick Roy.
He wasn't catching lightning in a bottle,
right,
but he was catching, like, climate change in a bottle, if you get my drift.
Doesn't exist.
But what I'll tell you is, I agree with you, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, yeah, you said it. There's some shit that I can't say on the air here. I'm not, it's just, it would betray the trust I've built with Tuukka. It would betray the trust I've built with people in this business. But people need to remember, and I'm guilty of it just as much as fans and vice versa, these are human beings we're talking about.
Right.
And their life isn't just within the confines of the rink or the game. They have lives. And Tuukka's got a family. He's got kids, like a lot of us. And, you got to sometimes take things with a grain of salt and not jump to conclusions all the time. Like certain on-air people in this city, Michael Felger.
You love Felger.
and the guy who has his lips stuck to Felger's ass would be Tony Maserati. Yeah, guys like those tick me off. And
Yeah.
they throw stuff out there, and I get it. I've done it too, to see if it sticks and to see if you're going to get some traction there and get listeners. Fine. But the problem is that Bruins fans are so passionate that they run with that. And then they think
They're
that
like rabid animals.
They think that is the absolute truth. And I hope that you and I, through our banter here on the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media, can sort of dissolve, dissect that, so to speak, and get to the bottom of it for our listeners. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun here. And you know what? We're only doing like a half-hour show, so let's get right into it right now. We are in the midst of what I like to call the real trade deadline, but yet this trade deadline runs the span of a week usually, and maybe a week later if you count free agency with the NHL entry draft and free agency. But now we've had extra days added on because of the current NHL expansion draft that's going on, and there's just been a ton of chatter over the last week. My phone, I've been glued to it. I just started a bartending job. I'm trying to. I'm trying to
bartending, man. We bartending.
I didn't want to get in trouble with the manager. She was like, "Can't use your cell phone here." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's the expansion draft." She's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" So I can't get fired over it, but I'm doing my best to stay on top of things. And I urge our followers to follow us here. Follow me on Twitter at Murphy's Law 74. I'll try and give you as well. By the way, what's your Twitter handle there, Joe?
Big Bad Bruins 88.
There we go. So that's where you will find Joe Gill. So follow us within this period we're talking about all the way up until I'll say like July 7th. And that's when things will start to finally calm down. People think the hockey season ended when the Penguins hoisted the cup. It just got cuckoo. And the Bruins, just like every other NHL club, have a chance to improve, keep their roster the same, or make it worse in this period we're speaking of right now. And Joe, as this period began, as a Bruins fan, on your mind, what was the ultimate thing you want to see the Bruins do? And I'm going to let you know as we speak if they're currently close to that or at least working on it.
Right. Yeah, I got you. Well, I mean, we all know that they got to start, infusing the talent. The young talent they have coming up, right? So, Charlie McAvoy, we all know, is pretty much here to stay. He showed enough in the playoffs, blew my mind. I think blew most, maybe yours as well. Most Bruins fans' mind.
And I had already seen him play a lot, Joe, but nothing could have predicted what he did in the playoffs. It was amazing.
Oh, so he even surprised you too. Okay, yep. That was the maturity level of that kid and the amount of minutes he played and how he kept Chara somewhat fresh, right? Because Chara, put up, 25 minutes a game, I think, something like that. And for a guy who's almost 40 years old. So that was very impressive. Then you got JFK coming up, and you got Bjork signed, which was a good surprise. Everybody was telling, you might know some more about that, Jim, that he wasn't going to sign. He's going to go back to ND, Notre Dame. So that was a very good, nice surprise. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I'm forgetting someone on the top of my head, and I can't remember the other forward.
The rookies?
Oh, we got DeBrusque coming up, and Sishin, and you got Zaboral. That's the three guys they drafted a few years ago. They're all maturing at a good rate. So it looks like one of them is probably going to. DeBrusque might break the lineup, right, in Boston.
Yeah, he could. But go ahead. The one thing to remember though too is and that's why this period we're in right now is going to determine a lot of if those guys you're talking about can break the lineup, because hopefully. I can tell you for a fact that the Bruins are trying to unload a lot of veterans and a lot of salary right now.
Jimmy Hayes?
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Yeah, I know, right? No one's taking him.
Before we go on, I want to tell you guys right now that I had an NHL source tell me, okay, I can't, that's all I can tell you is
that's fine.
NHL source. I don't want to get into details to sort of give off who it was, but this is comical.
Oh, please tell me.
And here's some breaking news for you on the Bruins Beat here on CLNS Media. The Boston Bruins, according to my source, all right, now I follow up with my Florida sources and my Boston sources, and they all denied it. But I still trust this source. And by the way, for fans out there, let's make it clear that when teams deny it, that usually means it's true. That doesn't mean it's not. All right, like, oh, okay, that's it, it's over, it's not true. That usually means it's actually true. So both sides denied this, but according to my source, the Bruins called the Panthers recently and offered Jimmy Hayes back for Riley Smith.
No, they didn't. Are you serious? They try to reverse it? Oh, my God.
Straight up, the same trade. Like, hi, we made a mistake.
Real bad one.
Let me pick up your bar tabs for life. And pay for a couple vacations for you. But please, can we just get a do-over here? They actually did that. And a lot of people in the hockey world, the insiders, the scouts, management, this got around pretty quick. And just another thing to laugh at the Bruins for.
How many more years he got on his contract, Jimmy?
Was it Jimmy Hayes?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go check that right now as we speak, but I want to say off the top of my head one more.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but I know Jason.
But Riley Smith has 5 years at $5 million. So I still actually would do that deal if I was the Bruins.
Well, I mean, he had his first good season, and then he kind of tailed off, and then we thought he was a bust, and then he played really well in Florida. But I remember, I don't know if you know this, but we actually started a GoFundMe page to actually buy out Jimmy Hayes from his contract. But we didn't get any money on it, but it was a funny thing. It kind of went around, but yeah, he was.
Yeah. By the way, Joe, just not to cut you up, but I am correct. UFA after this coming season, he's making 2.3. So I mean, in so many ways, that deal would be idiotic for the Bruins. Just the fact they get the nerve to still ask. But then you look at the money you're taking on when it's pretty clear you're trying to free up money right now and filter in young kids. I want to get back though, Joe. Get back. So, all right, you like that they're filtering the young guys.
Yes.
But through the expansion draft, and people say, well, how can the Bruins improve via the expansion draft? Well, through trades, and
yes.
As we'll get into, as you'll see, between now and our next podcast, you'll understand what we're talking about, that this expansion draft and the way the NHL constructed it has just opened the doors wide open for so many deals that you would have never seen until maybe the Thursday before the draft starts on Friday.
Right.
And it's great. But so if you're Don Sweeney, give me the primary thing you're doing right now to improve this team. And on July 7th, let's say, sit down with the media and let the fans know where you stand for the upcoming season.
Well, I think you need to. You can improve the team by subtraction and unload some of these veterans like the Adam McQuaids of the world. And Colin Miller looks like he's not going to pan out here.
He will be gone if Colin Miller isn't taken by Vegas to then turn around and trade him to Toronto. We'll see if that happens.
I saw that. Yep, I saw that about that.
But now, Adam McQuaid is the target on the Bruins roster as we record this. He is the target for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, because which would be good for the Bruins, of course, because we all said that after Kevin Miller had a really good bounce back season, which was never a Kevin Miller fan, but you got to give the guy his kudos. He played very well last year. Yep. And Adam McQuaid and him are the same guy, so it'd be good to get rid of Adam McQuaid, and he's always injured, as we all know. I don't think he's played a complete season since 2011. So I think shoring up that defense, putting some of the younger guys back there, they definitely need to do that. And then the firepower up front. I mean, outside of the number one line, which has been a rotating door with, you have Bergeron and Marchand, of course, but then who the hell? It could be Pastrnak, it could be Backus, who knows? But they need some stability after that first line because they really don't have any. They're still trying to figure that out, and they need to get Krejci, his winger that he's been wanting forever. Stafford was good.
Wait, just one sec. Why do they have to get Krejci his winger and not Krejci just play better?
Well, no, I agree there too. That's absolutely.
It's like, at what point do they stop spoiling David Krejci and letting him lean on that as an excuse? I mean, the second he did that, what was that, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
When he took a shot at the team and he was like, well, if they gave me a permanent winger again, like I had with Nathan Horton, or Milan Lucic, then maybe I'd be better. No. How about you go out and just do your job and shut up and stop being such a. Look, I'm with you on everything you just said, and I think one thing that I would have stressed a little even more is they need a number one or number two defenseman because Zdeno Chara cannot be that guy anymore. Yes, it's amazing what he did. I'm not dispelling that, but you can't depend on him. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the future of this organization. So I think that would be my primary focus, and I can tell you that it is Don Sweeney's. I know for a fact he's been in a lot of talks for guys like Vatanen. I think, he's probably likely. We heard Brodin, but according to Michael Russo of the Minnesota Star Tribune on Monday, that wasn't the case. The Bruins will never close on him. But they are in a lot of defensemen right now, so we'll see what happens with that. But my other thing, I would have exposed Krejci.
Really?
I know that, Vegas isn't going to take him because they said right up front that they're going to take as minimal big salaries as they can. Right. But I would have exposed him. Because
Jim, I see that on
what could have happened, Joe, what could have happened is what we'll likely be discussing happened a lot, is that Vegas could have worked out a deal with, say, Anaheim for Vatanen.
Right.
One of their young D-men, or Minnesota. They could have worked out a deal with a team that feels like they're knocking on the door and needed a number one center and taken Krejci, and then they never have to pay his salary because they just turn around and deal him to that team. And then the Bruins are free of that money. They're free of this crybaby who blames everyone except himself, and they can move on. I don't know. It'll be interesting. It was interesting that they didn't do that. I just thought it would have been worth the risk.
Speaking of crybabies, Ryan Spooner was not on that list, which is shocking as hell to me. So they just got all
awesome, buddy. I'm telling you right now.
What's that?
That's because he's approaching Jimmy Hayes' status, where you might be lucky if you get a bag of pucks for him.
Oh.
That's how bad his value went down. When as you said earlier, despite however you felt about Claude Julien, when he went out,
he's right about it.
And knocked Claude Julien, but right or wrong, and that's a whole separate show in my opinion. But right or wrong, you don't say that. You just don't.
No, I know Ryan. No, that was no. I meant Spooner.
Every GM looked at him right there and they said, "Look, kid, you know what? Claude's actually right. You do suck in your own end." And yes, you've got a good trade-off in the fact that you're an amazing power play player. You've got some raw skill, but you're not in a position to sit there and blame the coach. Incredible. And I don't want a young kid like that. If he's already thinking like David Krejci at age 24, whatever he is, you don't want him. And I think that really put the Bruins in a bad spot there because I know they had already been trying to deal him. And then when a lot of GMs saw that, they're like, you know what, this kid's a bad egg. I don't want him.
Well, and then, you got probably rubbing off on Toronto, and he said something too. But,
I'll give him a little credit, though. That was not as much as a shot at Claude as it was just at the situation.
Okay.
You go back and look at it. But I know what you're saying. That didn't help either. These kids need to learn to can it. Just go out there and play.
How far some have fallen, like when, when Chiarelli was still there. Spooner was off the table and Malcolm Subban was off the table. We're not even going to talk about those two guys trading them, and look at them now.
I know. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Oh, speaking of
cannon fodder.
This is why we need so much more time, Joe. I could tell you some good Malcolm Subban stories.
I love it. I love inside stuff, man.
But let's just it's well-known knowledge. It's out there for anyone to see. It's fact. Can you believe that Matt Murray was drafted after him?
Oh, good Lord. Please. Yeah, you can't hit them all because before the last couple years we didn't hit any.
Yeah.
Hello, Zach Hamill.
Anyhow, hey, listen, I think I'm with you on that, and I will tell our listeners that right now, as far as I know, as we record this, and I don't want to make this too time sensitive, but Don Sweeney is in talks with as many as 8 teams, as far as I know. His main target is a young, already NHL experienced one or two defensemen, and he knows it's going to cost him an arm and leg. He may end up dealing some names where you're going to be like, whoa, what? And I'm with him.
They have to.
I think he needs to do what he can get there because he's got McAvoy, so there's one of your top pairing, but you need another one to go there, or you need or maybe you put a stay at home with McAvoy, and then you put a top sort of 1-2 guy that can be that third defenseman, and put a stay at home with him, and you get that balance. Who knows?
Well, Z definitely falls to 3 or 4 now. I mean, he's.
I think Z's almost approaching 5 or 6.
Ooh, ouch. Hey, I don't know about you, but I thought he played very well last year, considering.
I thought he played great, but I mean, we're talking next year now, so you're talking 4 more months on the age calendar here, and you're talking about a guy that was playing minutes last year that a guy his age should not be playing. I'm not saying that he can't play him. He did it, like you said, he did a good job playing them. Right. But, Mother Nature kicks in sooner or later, as you and I both know.
Yeah, so true, Jimmy.
Maybe we should do a podcast on that. But
no, that would be depressing. I'm all set on that part.
It could be comical, too, though. I think a lot of people can relate. But, hey, listen, all I'm saying is, I think, yes, it's great they're getting younger, but it seems to me like they're getting really younger up front and not young enough on the back end. And I think that needs to be the goal right now. I keep Tuukka as is. I'm fine with the job he did last year. I thought he had a great bounce back here.
So what do you do for backup? Do you still go out and look for someone? Because Khudobin, had a little bit of a streak at the end, but that was it. I mean,
and I think one of the places to look is Vegas, because Vegas, as the listeners, by the time they listen to this, will probably find out, is likely drafting a lot of goalies. They're going to have some goalies to deal. That's a good place to look. And there's a lot of good young goalies out there. So many teams are up against it. You can steal a guy right now. It just takes scouting. And I hope that's what the Bruins Pro Scouts were doing this past year, because I agree with you. The goaltending backup position needs to be taken care of. I'd look at Jimmy Howard in Detroit, to be honest.
Oh, I wouldn't mind him at all.
But his salary is kind of tough, so I don't know.
Yeah, true.
But,
Peter
Mrazek, who the Red Wings exposed. Who knows?
Hey, I mean, Wise Man once told me from the first version of this show that, you got to be patient. The youth movement's coming, and I didn't want to believe anything he said. I think his name was Jason. Anything he said, but, he was right, because I wanted to win. I want to get back in the playoffs and win today. But after seeing how they sprinkled some of the kids in there, how McAvoy's coming, I mean, he's exciting right now. It's exciting the future, finally.
Yeah, and, good on Jason, because that's the way you have to be in the salary cap era. Things are so different now. You can't be like the old Rangers of old, where it was always about win. Now you can't do that. It's impossible, and you have to realize after that to, balance the present and the future, and don't get stuck in the past.
Oh, they did that for too long, Mr. Chiarelli.
I think that was one of the Bruins. I don't know if it was all Chiarelli. We'll get into it on another show, but I think in general, the organization, just as many organizations that win a cup do, they get stuck. They fall too in love. I mean, I was watching the Red Sox, just to make a baseball reference. I was watching the Red Sox Royals, and I heard, I think it was Jerry Remy talking about, the Royals is sort of at that point where they can't continue to be so in love with those guys, that core that brought them a World Series a few years ago, where they're going to have to start to filter some of those guys out, and that there's no cap in baseball. All they have is a luxury tax. So can you imagine if they're talking about that in baseball, how difficult it is in hockey? And I think that the Bruins have done a great job in the last few years of really cultivating that system again and realizing this is how it has to be done.
How did the Blackhawks do what they did? I mean, they look like they completely beat the system.
Unreal. That's catching up to them, though, isn't it?
No, now finally, that first round knockout to Nashville, I think really woke people up that they might be on the back nine finally.
Yeah, and I think that you and I might be talking about it maybe a little, even though it's not necessarily directly Bruins related, but I think we're going to be here maybe by the time we record again, we could be recapping a monster Blackhawks trade. I mean, they're talking about, getting rid of the likes of Kruger or some third liners, but you look at their cap situation, man. They're in a lot worse shape than the Bruins, and they might have to move a big name like a Corey Crawford. So we'll see what happens.
Well, but if I had to make a trade, like in 13 in that Stanley Cup, I mean, those two teams, a couple bounce the other way, the Bruins win that series. I really feel that way. But they were very, very close talent-wise and all that stuff. I thought very close, especially in that series. But then, after that, the mismanagement took one team one direction, one team the other. So it just tells you if you don't have a great guy as a GM or a guy that really knows what he's doing, or sold this.
I think scouting's even more important. I think scouting actually trumps being a GM. I think
you're right. But they had a really bad run.
Yeah, but I think even on the flip side, but part of that is the GM because he better put together a good amateur and pro scouting department. I will tell you, though, I don't necessarily blame it all on management there. I think there are a lot of deals, if you go back and look at it, we could dedicate a whole show to this. Maybe what deal would you have been able to do differently and win that cup that didn't screw you up later on salary cap-wise?
Well, I thought they really sold their souls to the devil to win that cup. If you think about it, I mean, they did. They did.
But are you upset about it?
No.
You and I never saw a cup in our lifetime.
I know I'm greedy, man. We can.
Yeah, I think as Boston sports fans, we've become very greedy over the years, and I understand it. But just quickly, and I think this circling back to what we're saying about a one or two defenseman being the primary target here in these 3 weeks that we're in the midst of now. When Zdeno Chara was treated like a turnstile at a great concert, you name your band, and I know you and I are great music fans. We're going to have a lot of good music in this show. But when he was treated like a turnstile by the Montreal Canadiens in 2014 in that 7-game series that the Canadiens won on TD Garden Ice, right then he was exposed not only within that series, within the confines of it, but he was exposed to the whole NHL by the Canadiens there. And I remember sitting with Russ Conway, a legendary hockey writer, and Russ looking at me saying, they need to trade him right now. If they wait 3 months, it's too late. They need to trade him right now. Now, of course, you've got to get him to waive the no movement clause, so that's a whole other story. But I know for a fact they weren't shopping him at all then, and they should have been listening a lot to offers then for Zdeno Chara, because I think that his value league-wide was still at an all-time high.
Right.
I'm not saying that he's been horrible since, because as we both said, I think he's overachieved. I think he's still been a solid guy. But that was the moment, I think, when a lot of stuff hit the fan. And, if they had to look back, that's what they got to do. So now they got to realize, as we're saying now, let's circle back to right now. We're both in agreement, Joe, right?
Right.
Don't fall in love with anybody right now.
No, definitely not.
This is a business. And if it means giving part of a guy that wears that cup ring from 2011,
right,
you got to do it. And that's why Adam McQuaid was exposed. I mean, he's a big guy in that clubhouse, man. Whether we agree with his contract or not is a different story, but he's a key part of that clubhouse.
Oh, yeah, he is. I mean, they lost a lot of that leadership, over the years. So.
Yeah, and so to lose character like that's a sacrifice, but that's part of moving forward. So as the Bruins hopefully move forward, I'm excited to move forward, Joe, with you on this Bruins Beat Podcast on CLNS Media. This is our first edition together, man. I had fun.
Yeah, Jimmy and Joe. This is how we're going to do it. J and J, baby.
Murphy and Gill. Sounds like a law firm for the IRA.
Yeah. So it sounds like a good Irish drinking team.
Yeah, we should have an office and a pub in Southie. There we go.
Sounds good.
This is the Bruins Beat with Joe Gill. I'm Jimmy Murphy, signing off. We will talk to you when the madness is over. Stay with us here on CLNS Media.